Welcome to We've Got a Country to Save, brought to you by our friends at Immun'Âge. Immun'Âge is the ultimate anti-aging supplement. Since I've been taking it, I feel energized, at the top of my game, and people keep saying I look younger. Go to Immun'Âge.com and use code Larry for 10% off. And by Relief Factor. Relief Factor is 100% drug-free, and it targets the inflammation that causes pain, so you can move better, feel better, and actually enjoy life again. And by Patriot Mobile and AmFed Coin and Bullion. Even if you bought from somebody else, AmFed will give you a free performance review. You've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. Just go to AmericanFederal.com. Now be sure and like and subscribe to our podcast. Make sure to follow or subscribe to my channel on whatever platform you are using, whether X, YouTube, Facebook, or Rumble. Please patronize our sponsors so we can keep bringing you these incredible videos. And if you don't patronize our sponsors, well... We know where you live. Let's start with the cancellation of Steve Colbert's late night show.
Before we start the show, I want to let you know something that I found out just last night. Next year will be our last season. The network will be ending The Late Show in May. And... yeah, I share your feelings. It's not just the end of our show, but it's the end of The Late Show on CBS. I'm not being replaced. This is all just going away.
Here's what Governor Tim Walz, failed VP candidate, said about the alleged comedian. Steve Colbert is the best in the business. He always told truth to power and pulled no punches. We need more of that, not less. End of quote. I thought Colbert's job was to tell jokes.
You know, these aren't jokes, these are thoughts, these are things that make you say...
Now, the most pathological reaction came from Rosie O'Donnell. Trump wants to arrest comedians?
And I just hope that Stephen Colbert goes on YouTube where he has no corporate bosses, you know, where he has no people like Les Moonves who said when people questioned him about propping up Trump in The Apprentice, he said, well, it may not be good for America, but it was good for CBS. People who measure in money only. Humanity doesn't matter to them. Money matters only. It's a disease. It really is. There's something really wrong. And I think Americans should stand up and say, no way. You're not going to silence us. You don't have the right to silence us. You never did and you never will. We the people have the right to speak up against atrocities which are happening on a daily basis. ICE, his own personal Gestapo. What will it take, America? What will it take? He's going to arrest every artist that disagrees with him, and pretty much every artist does. Whether or not they're brave enough to say it is another thing.
And then, of course, there's The View.
You know, it's always been the role of the court jester to make fun of the king. Yeah. That is the role of comedians. I have said on this show, I think I said it years ago, when they start coming for the comedians, all bets are off. Because the king he's supposed to take the hits. And this guy has the skin thinner than, you know, than I don't know, than this card. You know, he was insulted by Obama at the correspondents' dinner that time, and he's such a vengeful guy that he went after Obama after that. He cannot take a joke. And by the way, why is it, I think Jon Stewart said something like this, why is it that this guy can call any name he wants of anybody? Yeah. Little Marco, this one's stupid, that one's an idiot. We're not allowed to say anything like that on this show in particular, and I accept that, and I respect that. I'm not going to start calling him the Orange Menace, even if that's what he is. But I'm just saying, he can do it, but we can't. Well, that's not going to work.
It could be financial, and I don't know that it's purely political. It could be, but my concern is if it is political, then everyone should be concerned. People on the right should be concerned. People on the left should be concerned. Because it's very clear that if it is political, this is the dismantling of our democracy. This is the dismantling of our Constitution, right? And so the First Amendment is the First Amendment for a reason, and that is freedom of the press, freedom of speech, freedom to speak truth to power. If that is taken away, if the comedians are being attacked, then that means our Constitution is being dismantled.
That's right.
That means the very rubric of our democracy is being dismantled. And I think every single person should be really, really concerned about it. I'm thrilled that Senator Warren, Elizabeth Warren, Senator Bernie Sanders is asking Skydance, is asking for answers whether or not this was political. The Writers Guild is actually asking the Attorney General to look into this situation to find out if it was political. And if we find out it is political, what are we going to do as a country? We must protect our Constitution and we must protect our democracy. Because it's bigger than just the cancellation of a television.
Now get this. According to CBS, the Colbert Show loses $40 million a year. More on that in a moment. The writers for the show have asked the New York Attorney General Letitia James to launch an investigation, and Democrats are calling for a probe into whether this amounts to a bribe because parent company Paramount is seeking approval from the FCC for a merger.
So I want to tell you why the cancellation of Stephen Colbert's show matters so much. We are on the precipice of entering a censorship state in which Donald Trump is using the powers of the federal government in order to erase criticism from the airwaves. What's happening at CBS right now is bone-chilling. CBS's parent company, Paramount, is trying to get a merger approved, and they need that merger to be approved by the Trump administration. And so in a variety of different ways, Paramount is providing monetary and political favors to Donald Trump. First, they settled a totally bogus lawsuit that they would have won in a walk in court that was filed against them by Trump. They essentially just paid him $16 million personally. Then Paramount went to 60 Minutes, their flagship news program, and told them to stop criticizing Donald Trump so much. Why? Because they need this merger approved. And then finally, they have now canceled Stephen Colbert's show, knowing that Stephen Colbert was a nightly thorn in the side of Donald Trump. This is all clearly designed to get their merger approved so that their millionaire and billionaire owners and investors who are already filthy rich can become even more filthy rich. This is what happens when these massive corporations control the flow of information at the same time that you have an administration that is shameless about using the official powers given to them by the Constitution and by statute in order to compel political loyalty from the owners of those media companies. This is a really, really dangerous moment. Stephen Colbert didn't get thrown off the air because he wasn't doing well. He was the highest rated show on TV in late night. He was canceled, very likely, because Paramount and its owners are trying to get rich off of this merger, and Donald Trump has made it clear to them and everybody else in the media space that if you want any favors from me, then you have to silence my critics on your platforms.
Now, it turns out, as I mentioned, the Colbert Show is losing $40 million a year. I repeat, $40 million a year. Now, $40 million is a lot of jack, whether Steve Colbert or the WNBA is losing it. But in the WNBA's defense, that took a whole league. Colbert dropped $40 million all by himself. But according to this Colbert writer, it's not about profit and losses.
Saying this was financial. This was financial. CBS has a hell of a lot of problems. Okay, we know that. Most media has a hell of a lot of problems. They're saying, they didn't say this, but reportedly the show lost up to $40 million last year. Okay, so that's a lot of money. But as I said, it is the top-rated show. I mean, when you hear this is financial, there's nothing else to see here, do you think that's right?
No, I don't. And I don't for a couple of reasons. I mean, first, this show has not taken any of the steps that other late night shows have taken to cut costs to stay on the air. And also, you know, profit and loss reports don't account for a lot of ways in which a show like The Late Show with Stephen Colbert brings value to CBS and to Paramount. The Late Show is referenced in almost every quarterly Paramount investor call that we could find.
Right.
Wow. And I think that and that's because of the tremendous brand value that this has for the company. When you think about CBS, one of the first people you think about is Stephen Colbert. And so I think that the wrong question is, was there financial problems? I think the question is, why was this canceled? Was it because of a
Well, and as you point out, if you have the top-rated show with something that is part of pop culture and, ubiquitous in American culture, then would you try to do everything you could to keep it, as opposed to jettisoning it so quickly?
Which shows you why comedy writers don't run companies. Colbert is confused because, according to him, he's #1 in the ratings. I guess he doesn't know that Greg Gutfeld of Fox has 3 times its audience, but I digress.
CBS, our network, CBS, who I want to reiterate have always been great partners, put out a statement saying very nice things about me and about the show, and thank you to them for that. They clarified that the cancellation was purely a financial decision. But how could it purely be a financial decision if The Late Show is #1 in ratings? A lot of folks... It's confusing. A lot of folks are asking that question, mainly my staff's parents and spouses. Well, over the weekend, somebody at CBS followed up their gracious press release with a gracious anonymous leak saying they pulled the plug on our show because of losses pegged between $40 million and $50 million a year. 40 million's a big number. I could see us losing $24 million, but where would Paramount have possibly spent the other $16 million? Oh, yeah.
Here's the problem, Stevie. At one time, Johnny Carson's show generated an estimated $50 million to $100 million in annual profits for its parent company, NBC. It consistently rated #1 in late night, capturing as much as 70 to 80% of that audience. One night back in 1969, when performer Tiny Tim got married on the show, 50 million people watched. During Carson's last week in 1992, he averaged 19 million viewers, with his final show watched by 55 million Americans. By contrast, Colbert in May of this year averaged 1.9 million viewers, with ad revenue since 2018 down 40%.
Go yourself.
I just can't do it. I can't take this no more, man. You see, times have changed. Younger viewers spend their time on TikTok, YouTube, watching clips and streaming content when and where they want on various social media platforms. And speaking of younger viewers, this brings us to the Democrat meltdown over Colbert's cancellation. 20 years ago, Pew Research found that at least 20% of young viewers get their news, air quotes, from late-night shows, particularly the monologues, which nowadays serve as angry op-eds against conservative Republicans and especially against Donald Trump, routinely disparaged as dumb, racist, sexist, hateful, lying, warmongering, fat, evil, etc.
I want to talk about Donald Trump. Well, want is a strong word. I'm just practicing for when he's elected, and it's the law. A lot of people are talking about Donald Trump in Russia right now, and not just because of how much he resembles a bowl of Russian dressing. It was a rough week for Donald Trump. Isn't it nice? People know it was a rough week, they're trying to cheer him up. Trump was ridden hard and put away wet this week. And it looks like all the controversies are beginning to take their toll, with reports that Trump's campaign staff, even campaign manager Paul Manafort, feel like they're wasting their time and that Trump's staff is suicidal. They would jump off the building, but they're afraid they'd see the word Trump on the way down. Hello, and welcome to The Late Show. Last Thursday at the Democratic National Convention, the parents of a fallen U.S. soldier criticized Donald Trump. And over the weekend, he repeatedly lashed out at them, which got me thinking, is there anyone Donald Trump won't attack if they say something bad about him? Let's find out. First, a kindly old lady.
Hello. My collection of porcelain dolls have larger hands than Donald Trump. And larger penises.
All right, let's see what you have to say about that on the old Twitter feed. And nothing yet. Okay, let's kick it up a notch with a kindergartner with an adorable speech impediment.
I just got back from Epcot, so I have more foreign policy experience than Donald Trump.
And nothing so far. Okay, let's move on to this kitten. There you go. Hold on. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Trump seems upset, and the kitten is all over my desk. Say whatever you want about Trump, and I do frequently. After celebrating all last night, he was right back in campaign mode at the crack of dawn today. He called into all the morning shows, Fox and Friends, Good Morning America, CNN's New Day, Morning Joe, Dora the Explorer. It did get a little awkward when he said Boots should be deported. Now, Trump has been resisting frequent calls to change the tone of his presidential campaign, but this morning, we heard a different Donald Trump.
Sound presidential for us. I get more and more presidential as I have victories, absolutely.
Sounds like he's lying in bed.
No, I'm not.
No. No, I'm not. I'm not lying on the bed. I'm sitting on the toilet. It's fabulous. It's fabulous. Donald Trump just showed us exactly how he'd sound as president when he gets that 3 a.m. phone call. What? A bomb? Build a wall around and make the terrorists pay for it. I gotta pee. But Trump recently explained he's been an underdog his whole life.
My whole life really has been a no, and I fought through it. I have been, and I talk about it. It's not been easy for me. It has not been easy for me. And, I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million. I came into Manhattan, and I had to pay him back, and I had to pay him back with interest.
You heard right. Donald Trump calls $1 million a small loan, but remember, this is the same guy who thinks 3 is a small number of wives. So Matt Lauer tried to put this in perspective.
Let's just put this in perspective. You said it hasn't been easy for you, but my dad gave me $1 million loan. That probably is going to seem pretty easy to a lot of people.
But $1 million isn't very much compared to what I built.
Yes, I mean, these days, he's worth billions of dollars. For him, $1 million is garbage. So let me take a moment here to say, Mr. Trump, you look like $1 million. Clearly, this is an inspiring tale of a young man made good. The classic story of riches to richer. Donald was just a humble boy from the outer boroughs, and he wanted nothing more than to escape that provincial life and make his way in the big city. But his old man stood in his way saying, quote, "You don't want to go to Manhattan, that's not our territory." But Donald dared to head out into a land he didn't already own, moving from Queens to Manhattan, leaving his family blocks behind. The young Donald took passage across the stormy seas of the East River with nothing more than $1 million in his pocket and a shirt on his back. The other shirts were still at the tailor. And like so many immigrants before him, when he cast his eyes upon the glimmering beacon of the Statue of Liberty, he thought, she's a 6, maybe a 7 if she had a bigger rack.
Bites this big. He's pushing it in with his. I never saw a guy eat like this. I told my son, he was watching. He said, "Daddy, look." I said, "Don't watch. Little bites, little bites."
So this is where we are. This is where we are. These attacks on eating habits really missed the days when the candidates stuck to issues of substance, like the size of their hands and their penises. Anyway, speaking of things that make you sick, Donald Trump. Up till now, he's been the funny guy with the weird hair, and we've all had our fun poking at the big orange Garfield who hates Mexicans instead of Mondays. But recently, Trump's rallies have gotten ugly. First, in North Carolina, a Trump supporter sucker punched a nonviolent protester. On Friday, there were so many angry protesters at Trump's rally in Chicago that he canceled it, which is strange because usually a mob of angry people is a Trump rally. And on Saturday, during Trump's rally in Dayton, Ohio, a protester tried to rush the stage. He was either trying to disrupt the rally or just saw Trump's head from a distance and thought they were giving out free hams. The protester has been charged with disorderly conduct and inducing panic, which means he could be the next Republican frontrunner. Speaking of biblical punishments, Donald Trump. That's called Trump bomb. We're gonna have to say that man's name so many times between now and the election. I'm just trying to think of new ways to do it. The whole thing is a mystery, wrapped in a riddle, trapped inside of Enigma, and slathered with spray tan. You know what? I've wasted enough time. Donald Trump. Speaking of wasting time, Donald Trump. I've heard that about you. And now, one of the things, though, when you were here in November, you said that Trump was wearing off.
He is.
Between now and November. But not between now and November. You said in November he was wearing off. There had been no primaries, and I said I wanted you to come back to serve you a big bowl of Trump when he started winning primaries. And you doubted. You doubted that would happen.
What a horrible thought.
A bowl of Trump?
A bowl of Trump is.
Yeah?
Well, I mean...
You don't know what a bowl of Trump is?
I don't remember this.
Some Trump steaks? You want some Trump steaks? Mm-hmm. A little Trump wine? A little Trump wine in there? A little something like that? Trump wine? And of course, something orange. Something orange. You wanna? Hard to say this. If the polls are right, tomorrow Donald Trump could secure the Republican nomination. But that's how I show happiness too. Woo! We love you! But Trump could have a problem. You see, this time it's not about something he said, it's about something he didn't say. Will you unequivocally condemn David Duke and say that you don't want his vote or that of other white supremacists in this election?
I know nothing about David Duke. I know nothing about white supremacists. And so you're asking me a question that I'm supposed to be talking about people that I know nothing about.
I mean, I'm just talking about David Duke and the Ku Klux Klan here, but...
I don't know, honestly, I don't know David Duke.
Yeah, Trump needs to know before condemning David Duke or the KKK. It's not like they're Muslim or born in Mexico. Donald Trump was declared the state's big winner.
What he has right now, it appears to be unstoppable.
Yes, Trump is unstoppable. He's like Godzilla with less foreign policy experience. And I'll admit... But it's time to end the denial. We as a nation must prepare for the very real possibility of President Donald J. I think I just trumped in my mouth a little. Donald Trump. Because he gives all of us on TV something to talk about. He's all over the newscasts, he was on SNL, and if you turn on CBS right now, there's some guy talking about Donald Trump. But now, It could be President Trump, okay? Everybody's still talking, we were talking about this yesterday, and we're still talking about it today. Everybody's talking about yesterday's closed-door meeting between Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, and Speaker of the Mouth, Donald Trump. Trump is not, that's the ham. Donald Trump lost. Analysts, would anyone like to hear a joke? All right, here we go. Knock, knock. Orange. Speaking of Donald Trump, besides presidential candidate and man whose hair is a refugee from his scalp, Donald Trump is presently being sued over his fake college, Trump University. Donald Trump in the lead. Now, Donald Trump is a real man. Wax statue of Donald Trump, providing some hope that in the end, fear and hatred won't win. But Donald Trump might. Donald Trump versus the Pope. Donald Trump responded immediately. I come to work every day wanting to start the show with something other than Donald Trump. Donald Trump is in hot water because when we adults listen to Trump, we weep silently. Oh, in rare non-Trump news, it was so hot, Donald Trump tried to make out with it. You know what? Let's get straight to it. As usual, there is only one big orange story tonight, and that's Donald Trump. Welcome to The Late Show, and welcome to a whole new world. Because it turns out that hilarious Donald Trump is running for president thing, he meant it. Well, we're not broadcasting right now, so I'd say, what does Vladimir Putin's taste like? Sorry, I knew I should have turned this off. I apologize. Hold on 1 second. I gotta take this. Hold on. Hello?
Hello, Stephen. This is Donald Trump's new PR spokesman, Donald Melaniowicz.
And humor conveying news works. A 2021 study conducted by the Annenberg School of Communications found, and I'm quoting, new research suggests that humor may help keep people informed about politics. When compared to non-humorous news clips, viewers are not only more likely to share humorously presented news, but they're also more likely to remember the content from these segments, end of quote. For example, most people still believe that Sarah Palin said, I can see Russia from my house.
I can see Russia from my house.
What insight into Russian actions, particularly in the last couple of weeks, does the proximity of the state give you?
They're our next door neighbors, and you can actually see Russia from land here in Alaska.
I can see Russia from my house.
That is not what Sarah Palin said, but that's what most people think she said. The Media Research Center found during the fall presidential 2024 campaign between Trump and Kamala Harris, quote, hosts of the late night comedy shows, I'm talking about The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, Jimmy Kimmel, Steve Colbert, Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, they told a total of 1,463 jokes about Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. 1,428 of them were about Trump. 35 were about Harris. That's a whopping 40-to-1 ratio, or almost 92% to 2%. That's why Tampon Tim is so upset. Here's Timmy.
Wow. And I'm so sorry, what's your name?
My name's Tim. And I'm a knucklehead.
Hey Eldorados, back with another update on my journey with Immun'Âge. You heard me talk about this amazing fermented papaya supplement from Japan. When I first started taking it, I noticed an immediate boost in energy and clarity. My skin looked better. I felt younger. Well, the benefits haven't stopped. Today, my focus is laser sharp. I power through long days without feeling drained. And here's the kicker. I haven't been sick once since I started. My immune system is on point, and people keep asking, what have I changed? The truth is simple. I made Immun'Âge part of my daily routine, and I'm not turning back. This isn't hype. It works. It's backed by science. If you're serious about your health, about staying clear-minded and youthful, then do what I do. Take Immun'Âge. Go to Immun'Âge.com. That's IMMUNAGE.com, and use my code Larry at checkout. So you heard me talk about Patriot Mobile for a while now. You probably already know that for years, they've stood in the gap for every American who believes that faith, family, and freedom are worth fighting for. They are the real deal. But did you know they've got cutting-edge technology too? Switching is easy. No store visits, no hassle. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Their 100% US-based team can activate you in minutes right over the phone. And get this. Patriot Mobile is one of the few carriers with access to all 3 major U.S. networks. That means exceptional nationwide coverage, plus they can even put a second number on a different network on one phone. It's like carrying two phones in one. They have unlimited data plans, mobile hotspots, international roaming, internet on-the-go devices, and home internet backup. You can't get this from the big guys. So what are you waiting for? Make the switch today and experience the Patriot Mobile difference. Go to patriotmobile.com/Larry or call 972-PATRIOT, and right now use promo code Larry for a free month of service. Switch to Patriot Mobile and defend freedom with every call and text you make. That's patriotmobile.com/Larry or call 972-PATRIOT. This brings us to Hunter Biden and his 3-hour diatribe. Hunter, by the way, demonstrates the flexibility of the F word, which can be used as a noun, pronoun, verb, adverb, auxiliary, adjective, gerund, and what is known as an infixation.
Him and everybody around him are not to be nice. Number one, I agree with Quentin Tarantino. George Clooney is not an actor. He is I don't know what he is. He's a brand. And by the way, and God bless him. You know what? He supposedly treats his friends really well. You know what I mean? Buys them things. And he's got a really great place in Lake Como. And he's great friends with Barack Obama. What do you have to do with anything? Why do I have to listen to you? What right do you have to step on a man who's given 52 years of his life to the service of this country and decide that you, George Clooney, are going to take out basically a full-page ad in the New York Times to undermine the president at a time in which, by the way, what do people care about the most? Why do you think that the Republicans have an advantage over us? Because they're unified. They will go along with anything. I wasn't asking anybody to go along with anything.
Democrats weren't happy with Hunter and his post-mortem rant. It just reminds everybody about how Democrats lied about Biden's mental state.
This is a man that's on his game.
On his game, top of his game.
He's at the top of his game. Top of his game. Such a consequential president of the United States. A Mount Rushmore kind of president.
Is on the ball. The man knows more than most of us have forgotten.
Was on his game.
I walk into the Oval Office or see him on Air Force One, I have to be on top of my game.
Do you believe President Biden is the future of the Democratic Party? The strongest person to represent Democrats in 2024?
Absolutely.
Biden is extraordinarily strong.
Is the strongest, most accomplished president we've had in my lifetime.
Boldest and strongest American presidents we have had.
Focused and disciplined leader.
Focused. His recall was good.
Focused. He's detail-oriented.
Fitness, his vigor is beyond question.
Messages from your private phone.
Boss, as I figured. Fully vigorous and great mental and physical health.
Effective and capable president.
Fully capable of doing the job.
Capable and ready to serve another term.
Capable.
Seasoned and capable leader.
I have seen a lot of 72-year-olds not as capable as this 80-year-old.
But the president's stamina, the president's wisdom, ability to get this done on behalf of the American people against anyone on any day.
Clearly, this president is fit to serve.
President Biden has proven himself to have a strong memory. Smoking Joe Biden was on fire. Biden is better equipped to do that than Joe Biden.
President Biden is absolutely fit.
President is extremely effective.
I met no president like him. Most accomplished president we've had in my lifetime.
President is fully coherent. He is on top of details.
We see Joe Biden up close. We know how attuned he is to the issues, how informed he is. And I debate with him about legislation, not debate, but discuss it with him. He's right there.
Absolutely. He has more energy than I do. He works us all under the table. I can say that with certainty.
Have you heard any concerns from anyone who has met with President Biden about him seeming a little slower? No.
No, I don't have any concerns, and that's from personal interactions.
Do you share those concerns?
I don't share those concerns.
But can you honestly say you don't have any concerns about Joe Biden that night in these debates?
I do not have concerns.
I mean, there should be no concern.
Do you have any concerns about his age? Do you have any concerns about whether or not he should be the nominee?
I mean, I think right now, when it comes to the president's age, folks are talking about how he's 81.
Did he lay any concerns that you may have had about his age or his ability to do the job?
I was never really concerned with that.
Listen, as it relates to me, I'm ready if necessary, but it's not going to be necessary.
There's not a problem. This president is going to be able to sell a record.
Are you worried that Biden is a liability for your most vulnerable members?
No.
At the top of the ticket, given those concerns.
Responsible. I revere his record. I mean, what he's done in 3 years has been a masterclass.
I have every confidence in his abilities as president and his ability to continue doing the remarkable job that he's doing. I have complete confidence in the president.
As someone who was able to interact with him, I never questioned his mental acuity.
Never saw any cognitive decline.
You did not see any decline from 2024 Joe Biden to 2021 Joe Biden?
Not when I said that.
I have never seen him and walked away thinking he can't do this anymore. He was always on top of his brief.
And I never, ever felt like I saw anything that was decline. No.
You can go over whether he slips up and says one name when he wants to say another name.
He's always had a slight stutter.
And I think his staff overprotects him.
It's because of his age that he's been so successful.
His age is an asset.
age is his age, yes.
As I age, I appreciate wisdom even more. He's bright, he's experienced, and with age also comes incredible wisdom. This is the most prepared person ever to be president of the United States.
Sharper than anyone I've spoken to.
He's sharp, he's fit, he's always answering questions.
He's sharp. He is on top of things.
Incredibly sharp, incredibly probing, incredible command of the details.
And the man's sharp. The man knows what he's talking about. He does the job. He's sharp. He's engaged. He pushes us.
He was sharp. He asked good questions. He probed and had good conversation.
Sharp fit.
Joe Biden's mental acuity is very, very on. He's one of the smartest, sharpest people I've met in D.C.
I've seen the president twice in the last 2 weeks. I've had a conversation with him. He's completely mentally sharp.
You think he was as sharp as you?
I said I had not seen decline.
There is nothing to these challenges, these suggestions that somehow he's not sharp and he's not capable.
He is as sharp as ever.
I'm sick and tired of everybody talking about his age.
Does the president have the stamina, physically and mentally, do you think, to continue on even after 2024?
God, you're asking me this question. Oh my gosh, he's the president of the United States. He was sharp. He was on his feet. I saw it. Live event. I had meetings with him a couple of times.
Senator, on his feet is not praise. He can speak in sentences is not praise.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Get me mumbles.
She knows so long as she was denied, our freedom can never be secured.
Would you run it by me one more time?
She knows so long as she was denied, our freedom can never be secured.
Run that by me one more time to make sure that I heard you right.
She knows so long as she was denied. The idea that we become semi-isolationists now, which some are talking about, I mean, the idea we had to wait all those months just to get the money for Iraq because we were waiting. I mean, it's not who we are. And no president, no former president, not me, not one, should have been given any exception to this. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. You can beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway, all men and women created by you know the thing.
Why would you call Joe Biden what you called him today?
That he's dumb?
No. That would have been a compliment. That would have been like an invitation to the prom. You called him a mentally deficient idiot.
I didn't mean that. I meant he's dumb. I think Joe's last in his law school class.
He wasn't last, but he was low.
Actually, he was second to last, and the guy died, and he ended up last.
We had it as a different number, but he didn't do well. Right. I'll give you that.
He had a plagiarism problem in law school. He had a plagiarism problem as a senator, which I think indicates something even about character. Constantly making faux pas.
So, Pamela, I don't think you're going to be surprised to hear this. I really am not spending a lot of time looking in the rear view mirror. We've got a crisis in our democracy from the assaults of the Trump administration. I understand the personal pain that Hunter Biden is experiencing on all sorts of fronts, but I don't think it's constructive right now to engage in this backward-looking finger-pointing when our Constitution, our democracy is under threat, while Donald Trump's policies are raising prices on American families, when they just passed a bill to provide tax breaks to billionaires while cutting funds for people's health care. That's what I'm really focused on, getting that story out loudly and clearly.
I mean, these are clearly his opinions, and he has the right to express them. In an over 3-hour podcast, he talked about a lot about addiction and recovery. So the parts about the Democratic Party were a small portion of it, and parts about the former president were also a small portion. So I don't want some of that stuff to get lost as well. But the Democratic Party has a real identity problem, and I think that they are working to fix that. And there was a New York Times story that they're doing a retrospective from the DNC. So he's not alone in the criticism, for sure. You can see that. You can see that there's been missteps since the 24 cycle. So he's not alone in the misstep, or in the criticism of the missteps. I'm just not sure that people want to hear really from Hunter at this moment in time.
Look at what's happening in this country right now. Like, I know you're angry personally, but you're a victim here. We're all living with what happened in this election. And
you got a pardon. You're fine.
It's just utter lack of self-awareness.
It's the shamelessness that really gets you in the end.
Now, some say Hunter is broke and that the reason he's speaking out now is that he hopes it'll get him paid speaking gigs. But Hunter has 2 paths for future wealth. Plan A, wait for dad to die and hope he's in the will. Plan B, pick back up that paintbrush. Look, Hunter goes off for 3 hours about what Democrats did to Father Joe. He did it with Father Joe's consent and direction. All Hunter did is repeat the things that Joe and Jill are expressing privately. They are livid that Joe was tossed overboard. But you know, at one time, Joe said only God Almighty could force him to drop out.
If you can be convinced that you cannot defeat Donald Trump, will you stand down?
Well, it depends if the Lord Almighty comes down and tells me that, I might do that.
So, Joe, look in the mirror. Why didn't you stand your ground? The worst that could have happened is that you'd have lost, which of course is what happened to Kamala. As for why, how, and who threw Joe overboard after Joe's debate with Trump, Hunter had a long list of suspects.
Opinions, but him and everybody around him don't have to be nice. Number one, I agree with Quentin Tarantino. George Clooney is not an actor. He is a I don't know what he is. He's a brand. What do you have to do with anything? Why do I have to listen to you? What right do you have to step on a man who's given 52 years of his life to the service of this country and decide that you, George Clooney, are going to take out basically a full-page ad in the New York Times to me and James Carville, who hasn't run a race in 40 years, and David Axelrod, who had one success in his political life, and that was Barack Obama. And that was because of Barack Obama, not because of David Axelrod. And David Plouffe, and all of these guys, and the Pod Save America guys, who were junior speechwriters in, on Barack Obama's Senate staff, who have been dining out on the relationship with him for years, making millions of dollars. The Anita Dunns of the world, who's made $40, $50 million off the Democratic Party. They're all going to insert their judgment over a man who has figured out, unlike anybody else, how to get elected to the United States Senate over 7 times, and they're going to replace their judgment for his.
Not to mention...
Who's Jake Tapper's audience? Jake Tapper...
My mom or something? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. For real, though. I don't even think it's your mom anymore.
No.
By the numbers, what influence does Jake Tapper have over anything? He has the smallest audience on cable news. And beyond that, I think that the book is right now on Amazon that he put out. I mean, his ratings just went to after he put the book out. You know, they did a 2-week infomercial for it. I mean, it was such a money grab, such a disservice to everybody that he serves with. And you would have the Speaker Emeritus that would say, well, you know, I'm going to leave it up to, but I don't know. And they had already made a decision. They had clearly made a decision. And when I say they, I mean the Speaker. And, you know, I heard Alexandra Pelosi say something, call my mom, like, put your big girl pants on to my mom or something. And I kind of feel like saying, who the do you think you are? I would never speak about your mom that way.
Yeah.
I would never speak about your father that way. I would never insult your parents that way.
Political strategist David Axelrod continues to raise alarms about recent polls that show President Joe Biden losing to Donald Trump. Speaking with columnist Maureen Dowd, Axelrod warned the Biden campaign against discounting the numbers, saying, quote, I hope they don't think the polls are wrong, because they're not. He continued, I think Biden has a 50-50 shot here, but no better than that. Maybe a little worse. He thinks he can cheat nature here, and it's really risky. They've got a real problem if they are counting on Trump to win it for them. I remember Hillary doing that too.
Including Democratic strategist and CNN senior political commentator David Axelrod. He says, in part, quote, the stakes of miscalculation here are too dramatic to ignore. If he continues to run, he will be the nominee of the Democratic Party. What he needs to decide is whether that is wise, whether it's in his best interest or the country's, end quote. David Axelrod joins us now. David, appreciate your time. You know when you're typing out these 2 tweets what the response is going to be. And there's, I guess I would start with, what's the intent here? What do you want him to decide is in his best interest and the country's?
Look, only he can decide that. As I've said for like a couple of years now, the issue is not, for him is not political, it's actuarial. And you can see that in this poll. I mean, there's just a lot of concern about the age issue. And that is something that I think he needs to ponder. Just do a check and say, is this the right thing to do?
And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban. on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
He seemed to deny where he is in the race. He seems not to grasp what is the big concern that people have. So his psyche is that he can beat anybody and any long odds. What he can't beat is Father Time, and that's really the concern here. It's not about his record. Every time he's asked about whether he can do the job until he's closer to 90 than 80, he says, well, look at what I did the last 4 years. That's just not the way it works. The one person that no one can outrun is Father Time. Mm-hmm. You know, Tom Brady won a Super Bowl 3 years ago, and he's out of football. Okay, why? Doesn't detract from his greatness or what he's done. It's just there are certain immutable facts of life, and those were painfully obvious on that debate stage. And the president just doesn't seem to he hasn't come to grips with it. He's not winning this race. He's more likely, if you just look at the data and talk to people around the country, political people around the country, it's more likely that he'll lose by a landslide than win narrowly this race. And if the stakes are as large as he says, and I believe they are, then he really needs to consider what the right thing to do here is. The question is, what will his reputation be like? What will his legacy be if he persists in this race and loses badly, which is really possible at this point?
Axelrod doesn't expel gas without first getting permission from Barack Obama. Obama told him to go out there and say it, and he did. Yet Hunter gives Obama a pass. Are Hunter, Jill, and Joe that clueless? Or are they afraid of Obama and what Obama supporters would say and do to Joe and his legacy if he fingered Obama as the culprit? Isn't it amazing how Obama skates?
Former President Obama giving himself a pat on the back, claiming he did not have any scandals during his 8 years in office. The former president making the remarks at a tech conference in Las Vegas, saying, quote, "I didn't have scandals," which seems like it shouldn't be something you brag about.
Really? You mean apart from Benghazi, the IRS targeting scandal, Fast and Furious? Obama is the one who authorized Crossfire Hurricane, the phony Russia collusion narrative designed to undermine Trump's 2016 victory and to create the narrative that Russia elected Trump and that therefore Trump is illegitimate and the election was stolen from Hillary.
No, Barack Hussein Obama is the ringleader. Hillary Clinton was right there with him, and so was Sleepy Joe Biden, and so were the rest of them. Comey, Clapper, the whole group. And they tried to rig an election, and they got caught. And then they did rig the election in 2020. And then because I knew I won that election by a lot, I did it a third time, and I won in a landslide. Every swing state won the popular vote. But I won that all the same way in 2020. And look at the damage that was caused.
Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard says newly released documents back Trump up.
We will be releasing these documents shortly in the wake of the release that we did last week. I'm very encouraged by the fact that we have whistleblowers coming forward who are intelligence community professionals who were there when this happened and who were disgusted by it and are heartened at the possibility and the hope that the truth will see the light of day. And of course, the most important thing is that the American people see accountability.
Here's the deal, and this is why the Democrats are in full meltdown. These newly released docs show the intelligence community doubted that Russia was capable of using cyber to hack the election. They doubted that they had the desire to do so, and they doubted that in any case, there was no evidence that what Russia did was an effort to get Trump elected.
It's sort of a witch hunt, just a continuation of the witch hunt. The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up all the way going up to 2020 of the election. They tried to rig the election, and they got caught. and there should be very severe consequences for that. The names are all there. And I guess they figured they're going to put this in classified information and nobody will ever see it again, but it doesn't work that way. And it's the most unbelievable thing I think I've ever read. So you ought to take a look at that and stop talking about nonsense, because this is big stuff.
And a spokesperson for President Obama said the claims were, quote, outrageous enough to merit a response, stating, quote, these bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. Nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. These findings were affirmed in a 2020 report by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee, led by then Chairman Marco Rubio. Now, the White House communications director stood by the Trump administration's claims in response to that statement. And notably, while President Trump in his remarks said that it was time to go after people, a Supreme Court ruling last year granted presidents immunity for official acts, Liz.
Role in all of this, overseeing it. And I think President Trump's venom is understandable as directed against Barack Obama and Comey, Brennan, and Clapper. I call them the three stooges of Obama's national security team. You know, the documents show that all of them were aiding and abetting the scheme cooked up by Hillary Clinton to frame Trump as a Russian asset, even though they knew at the outset it was all fabricated. Here's the thing, Larry. Instead of stepping forward and telling the truth to the American people in the summer of 2016 when they knew it, they kept silent. And they watched as James Comey launched his damaging investigation of Trump without any credible evidence. And these new declassified documents show how they scuttled an intel briefing that concluded there was no Russian interference and conspired to replace it with an intelligence assessment that said just the opposite. And then, to make matters worse, they inserted the phony dossier into that intelligence assessment, pretending it was true, even though the FBI had already debunked it. Clapper then leaked the dossier to CNN, and the mainstream media was off and running, convicting Trump in the court of public opinion without ever a shred of any plausible evidence. It truly was the dirtiest trick in American political history.
The Steele dossier was a fraud to begin with.
There were two meetings. July 28th was the first one at the White House. Obama was there, Comey, Brennan, Clapper, Biden. And, you know, Brennan had rushed over to tell him what Hillary had done, invented this thing, and had commissioned a dossier, was financing it. You know, Steele was triple dipping. He was getting paid by the FBI, by Hillary Clinton's campaign, and the DNC. And at one point in time, you know, the FBI found out he was lying, so they fired him. Well, did Comey tell the FISA court when he sought those warrants to spy? No. He, in fact, vouched for Steele, saying he was credible and reliable, and didn't tell the judges, oh, by the way, we fired him. And, oh, by the way, we've also debunked the dossier. No, they used it to manipulate the justice system for surveillance purposes on the Trump campaign.
CIA Director John Brennan, who despises Trump, overruled the intelligence community's assessment that there was no evidence that Russia was trying to help Trump or that it had the capability of changing vote tallies to do so. Indeed, Obama's Secretary of Homeland Security, Jay Johnson, later testified under oath that the Russians failed to change a single vote tally.
I know of no evidence that through cyber intrusions, votes were altered or suppressed in some way.
Yet Brennan pushed that narrative anyway. And Obama authorized the investigation into the alleged Trump-Russia collusion, known as Crossfire Hurricane, despite the intelligence community's assessment that the evidence for this narrative was weak. I mean, at one time, even Obama dismissed the idea that an election could be rigged.
Of course the elections will not be rigged. What does that mean? The federal government doesn't run the election process. states and cities and communities all across the country, they're the ones who set up the voting systems and the voting booths. And if Mr. Trump is suggesting that there is a conspiracy theory that is being propagated across the country, including in places like Texas, where typically it's not Democrats who are in charge of voting booths, that's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense, and I don't think anybody would take that seriously. I think all of us at some points in our lives have played sports, or maybe just played in a schoolyard or a sandbox, and sometimes folks, if they lose, they start complaining that they got cheated. But I've never heard of somebody complaining about being cheated before the game was over, or before the scores even tallied. So my suggestion would be, go out there and try to win the election. If Mr. Trump is up 10 or 15 points on election day and ends up losing, then maybe he can raise some questions. That doesn't seem to be the case at the moment.
Yet according to a 2018 YouGov poll, 66% of Democrats believe the Russians changed vote tallies to elect Trump. And according to a 2018 Gallup poll, 78% of Democrats believe the Russian interference altered the outcome of the election, even though Obama's DHS Secretary Johnson also said he has no idea whether Russian interference altered public opinion or altered the outcome of the election. He'd have to be a mind reader, he said, and he'd have to have a world where there was interference, one where there wasn't interference, and compare the difference. I cannot do that, he says, so I don't know.
Whether you can assure the country, based on what you saw that night and your analysis since, that Russian hacking did not affect the outcome of the election. Are you confident of that?
Well, we see no evidence that hacking by any actor altered the ballot count or any cyber actions that deprived people of voting. Whether the disclosures that were made that we pointed out in our October 7th statement altered public opinion, that's beyond my level of expertise.
And let me take you back to the wording of that October 7 statement for just a moment. The word that you and Director Clapper chose was interfere in the election process. Was that meant to encompass the idea that you were in fact seeing an attempt to help somebody and hurt somebody else? Is that what interfere means?
The lawyer being cross-examined here. Well, we obviously chose our words very carefully, and interfere is a significant word. It's a serious word. And I'm not sure I can say much more than that. I mean, it has different meanings to different authors, I suppose, but we chose that word very carefully. It's a very serious word.
Its one meaning is seek to affect the outcome.
I would use the word interfere.
But the NYU Stern School of Management conducted a study to find out the effect of the Russian interference, and they determined that the effect was barely measurable. As to Russia using trolls on Twitter during the election, the study found little effect on voter attitudes, polarization, or on voting behavior. Yet the media bought the Russian hacked the election to elect Donald Trump hook, line, and sinker.
Russia hacking the election to elect Trump is the end of our democracy. Votes were definitely affected. Russia hacked the election to tilt it to Mr. Trump.
The Russians definitively hacked the election.
Russia did hack the election.
No doubt. The Russians hacked the election.
Yes, Russia hacked the election.
Fact, Russia hacked the election.
President-elect Donald Trump still not sounding convinced that Russia hacked the election.
The president does not want to come to terms with the fact that the Russians hacked the election.
President Trump says he still wonders if
if the Russians hacked the election.
If you can get him to accept that Russia hacked the election, see if you can get him to accept who won the Civil War.
If he admits it, it casts a shadow on his victory over Hillary Clinton.
Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election.
Let's be clear, Russia hacked the election.
Definitively, Russia hacked the election, and Russia is doing it again now.
Election-related cyber hacking.
Cyber hacking of U.S. elections. Cyber hacking of the election.
Russia was cyber hacking the election.
Russia was cyber hacking the election.
The CIA, the FBI, NSA.
All of these intelligence organizations.
17 intelligence agencies.
All conclude that Russia hacked the election.
If we find out that Donald Trump, just theoretically, was colluding with Russia while they were hacking the election, that is completely impeachable.
This dossier alleged a conspiracy between the Trump campaign and the Russian effort to hack the election.
The director of national intelligence, the head of the National Security Agency, the head of the FBI, all of these intelligence experts saying Russia hacked the election.
The FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the former director of national intelligence, James Clapper, I mean, they've all said this. So to believe that that's wrong, you have to believe they're all involved in an elaborate conspiracy to get Donald Trump, which seems a little far-fetched.
And then there was Hillary, fanning the flames.
As I've been telling candidates who have come to see me, you can run the best campaign, you can even become the nominee, and you can have the election stolen from you.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president who got illegitimate foreign help. He knows he's an illegitimate president. He knows that there were a bunch of different reasons why the election turned out the way it did. I know that he knows that this wasn't on the level.
Why do you think the president is going to such great lengths to essentially prove that he beat you?
Because he knows he didn't. He knows he's an illegitimate president.
I do think that he knows that he's an illegitimate president.
How can you win with Russian interference, though?
That's the real
what I'm
thing.
scared about in 2020.
But rightly.
Because I think he's an illegitimate president that didn't really win. So how do you fight against that in 2020?
You are absolutely right.
He's an illegitimate president in my mind.
Would you be my vice presidential candidate? Folks, look, I absolutely agree.
And there's no doubt that the Russians did interfere in the election. And I think the interference, although not yet quantified, if fully investigated, would show that Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put into office because the Russians interfered on his behalf.
President-elect, although legally elected, is not legitimate.
I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president.
Now, the Obama administration, of course, had to respond to these new bombshell disclosures. Here's their statement. Out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response. But these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. The statement continues. Nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. These findings were affirmed in a 2020 report by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee led by then Chairman Marco Rubio, end of quote. Now let me repeat something in that statement. Quote, nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, end of quote. The statement did not say nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 election on behalf of Trump. They didn't say that part. That's a 180-degree departure from what the Russia collusion hoax pushers had been peddling, that Russia not only interfered, not only hacked to influence the election, but did so in order to elect Trump. That part was not included in Obama's statement. Wonder why? And let's remember, Russia, like most everybody else, present company excluded, assumed Hillary was going to win in 2016. Russia took out a bunch of Facebook ads, some pro-Hillary, some anti-Hillary, some pro-Trump, some anti-Trump, some pro-Black Lives Matter, some anti-Black Lives Matter, so that when Hillary won, Russia hoped that at least some of the country would call her election illegitimate. Again, the intel community did not believe Russia was trying to help Trump, but CIA's Brennan overruled them and pushed the narrative anyway. And again, it was Barack Obama who, despite the misgivings of the intelligence community, who authorized Crossfire Hurricane. And ultimately, it proved to be completely without merit.
After finding no underlying collusion with Russia, the special counsel's report goes on to consider whether certain actions of the president could amount to obstruction of the special counsel's investigation. As I addressed in my March 24th letter, the special counsel did not make a traditional prosecutorial judgment regarding this allegation. Instead, the report recounts 10 episodes involving the president and discusses potential legal theories for connecting those activities to the elements of an obstruction offense. After carefully reviewing the facts and legal theories outlined in the report, and in consultation with the Office of Legal Counsel and other department lawyers, the Deputy Attorney General and I concluded that the evidence developed by the special counsel is not sufficient to establish that the president committed an obstruction of justice offense.
So Obama isn't sweating the consequences of this newly released docs showing phony intel used to get Trump and then to make his election look illegitimate. Why? If Obama got indicted for treason, sedition, or littering, the country would be on fire, and Obama knows it. And so does Trump. Now let's turn to the Epstein file scandal that is not going away.
My comments were clear. I'm not paid for my opinions anymore. I work for the taxpayer now. I'm paid on evidence. That's it. The evidence we have in our files clearly indicates that it was, in fact, a suicide. We do have video. It's not the greatest video in the world. I don't want to set expectations on fire. However, the video does show in that specific block that he goes in, made a phone call. You'll see 12 hours of guards going to basically check on him, come back. You'll see no one really comes out in that bay, in that area, than him. There's no one in there. When you combine that with the other evidence we will be releasing in the coming weeks, we're still finalizing some of the products. I think it's pretty clear. However, as I've clearly indicated in some of my tweets on my official account, you know, listen, investigations, if new information surfaces in the future on any of these cases, we're always open. I'm just telling you, there's nothing there in the file at all that indicates anything other than, in fact, a suicide.
But
so why was he in jail and then and allegedly kill himself? I mean, did he commit suicide? A lot of people think it was, you know, some people who were going to get exposed had a hand in his death. Was he, very quickly, I don't have a lot of time, and why was he in jail if there's nothing? I mean, it's not, porn is not illegal. Last we checked.
Alleged to have transported women across state lines for immoral purposes, the same crime that Sean Combs was recently convicted of. And that's why he pleaded guilty, by the way, only to 2 counts of one young woman above the age of consent, one young woman a few months below the age of consent. There were only 2 of them. There were state charges. He pleaded guilty. He got 18 months and had to register as a sex offender. He was never convicted of any federal offense or multiple actions, although he was accused later on. He was in jail awaiting trial when he, I think, killed himself with the help of jailers. I don't think he could have done it by himself.
Now the plot thickens. The House Oversight Committee has unanimously subpoenaed Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell. And Trump allegedly wrote a birthday greeting for Jeffrey Epstein on his 50th birthday.
Major new developments in the push for answers in the Jeffrey Epstein case. Republican House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer formally issuing a subpoena to Ghislaine Maxwell for a deposition to take place at a federal prison in Florida on August 11th. Comer, in a statement today, saying the facts and circumstances surrounding Maxwell and Epstein's cases have received immense public interest and scrutiny. The news coming just a short time after we learned a federal judge in Florida denying 1 of 3 requests from the Justice Department to unseal grand jury records tied to the Jeffrey Epstein case.
Trump denies this and says, it doesn't sound like me. I don't draw. Here's Jon Stewart taking a whack at moi for my take on this.
Now, MAGA world, as you know, is demanding the Epstein files, and yet somehow still has lined up behind Trump to defuse this apparently specific file, starting with the fact that Trump couldn't have written that birthday card. He doesn't know all the words that were in it.
Somebody did an AI search, and out of decades and decades and decades of being a public figure and now a political figure, Donald Trump has never used the word enigma.
I imagine he's used words that are close. Well, if AI cannot find reference to the word enigma in all of Donald Trump's communiques over the roll 212.
I'm first, Carson's second. Now, Carson's an enigma to me. Carson's an enigma.
He knows the word. And Trump has accurately used it in a sentence. Extra credit.
All righty then. Stewart, who unlike Colbert, is often quite funny despite the predictable and, of course, one-sided nature of his comedy. He's actually making a good point. And more importantly, it was funny. But Stewart, of course, left out my main point, which is this. Assume Trump did write the birthday greeting. So what? Therefore, Trump is a pedophile? Also, I didn't say Trump never used the word enigma. I said someone did an AI search, which is true, and did not find any instance where Trump used the word enigma. But hey, John, thanks for watching. Now I'm famous.
Thank you. You love me. You really love me.
Now, to make the Epstein scandal go away, everything, I mean everything, should be released and let the chips fall where they may.
That concerns either testifying or testimony for Ghislaine Maxwell, potentially before Congress, or if you would support members like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Anna Paulina Luna on the release of subpoenaing the Epstein documents from the DOJ, whether you would support either of those.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Marjorie or Anna about that specific subject, but I'm for transparency. We're intellectually consistent in this. We look, Reagan used to tell us we should trust the American people. I believe in that principle. I know President Trump does as well, and I trust him. I mean, he put together a team of his choosing, and they're doing a great job. It's a very delicate subject, but we should put everything out there and let the people decide it. I mean, the White House and the White House team are privy to facts that I don't know. I mean, this isn't my lane. I haven't been involved in that. But I agree with the sentiment that we need to put it out there. And you know, Pam Bondi, I don't know, when she originally made the statement, I think she was talking about documents, as I understood it, they were on her desk. I don't know that she was specific about a list or whatever, but she needs to come forward and explain that to everybody. I like Pam. I mean, I think she's done a good job. We need the DOJ focusing on the major priorities. So let's get this thing resolved so that they can deal with violent crime and public safety and election integrity and going after Act Blue and the things that the president is most concerned about, as we are.
But a federal district court just turned down Trump's request to have the grand jury Epstein transcripts released. So stay tuned. If you think investing in collectible numismatic coins is a smart way to protect your wealth, think again. For years, my friend Nick Grovich, owner of Amfed Coin and Bullion, has been telling investors to stay away from collectible coins. Instead, he recommends investing in gold and silver bullion and bullion coins. Nick is so serious about this, he's willing to pay you $5,000 to prove him wrong. All you have to do is send Nick a copy of any legitimate invoice for rare or collectible coins that you purchased since 1986. Nick will compare what those coins are worth today to the present value of what the equivalent dollars would have purchased in gold bullion. If your rare coin portfolio outperforms gold bullion, Nick will pay you $5,000. Nick made the same offer years ago, and he's never had to pay out a penny. Call Amfed Coin and Bullion for your complimentary coin performance review. 1-800-221-7694, 1-800-221-7694, or AmericanFederal.com. That's AmericanFederal.com. Ever been in a bad relationship? You know the kind, it just wears you down. You settle in even though deep down you know this isn't how it's supposed to be. Well, that's what daily aches and pain can feel like. You stop expecting to feel good. You start thinking, maybe this is just life now. It is what it is. But it doesn't have to be. With Relief Factor, you can break up with pain, just like Anthony did. As he writes, and I'm quoting Anthony, I was dealing with debilitating pain and fatigue. I've been taking Relief Factor for about 2 months, and now I'm back to running my business, fishing, gardening, doing the things that really matter to me. My older brother, Kirk, used to go up and down the stairs in the morning and had pain. I told Kirk, try Relief Factor. After about 2 weeks, he calls me and he says, bro, this stuff is working. Relief Factor is 100% drug-free, and it targets the inflammation that causes pain, so you can move better, feel better, and actually enjoy life again. Try the 3-week quick start for just $19.95, less than $1 a day. Go to ReliefFactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF. Break up with pain and get back to what matters. ReliefFactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF. Sigh. Another actor craps on Trump. This time, Jeff Dumb and Dumber Daniels.
We've lost decency. We've lost civility. We've lost respect for the rule of law. Lost it. We have normalized verbal abuse on the internet. We've normalized bullying, much as the woke generation tried to, change that. It's back. And out the window goes character, integrity. I mean, nobody has great things to say about politicians. They never have. Go back to Mark Twain. But ideally, we're supposed to elect the best of us, not the worst of us. He's everything that's wrong with not just America, but with being a human being. I mean, look at anything that Trump's done. It plays into hatred. It plays into what's the worst possible thing we can create and then fan that flame. And that's why you've got racism and bigotry and make America, the hat should say, make America white again. That's what it should say.
Let's unpack a little bit of this, shall we? Where has this man been for the last 75 years? Politics didn't just start in 2015 when Donald Trump descended the escalator. Here's some decency and civility of the Democrats going back decades. Their long playbook of routinely calling Republicans racist, fascist, Nazis. About President George W. Bush, billionaire Democrat contributor George Soros said, quote, he displays the supremacist ideology of Nazi Germany, and his administration used rhetoric that echoes his childhood in occupied Hungary. When I hear Bush say you're either with us or against us, it reminds me of the Germans. He also said George W. Bush and the Nazi communist regimes all engaged in politics of fear. Indeed, the Bush administration has been able to improve on the techniques used by the Nazi and communist propaganda machines.
Your new book, The Age of Fallibility, Consequences of the War on Terror. I want to read to you a quote that sort of startled me, I'm sure a lot of your readers, once they read it. The Bush administration and the Nazi and communist regimes all engaged in the politics of fear. Indeed, the Bush administration has been able to improve on the technique used by the Nazi and communist propaganda machines by drawing on the innovations of the advertising and marketing industries. Now, when a lot of people hear comparisons between President Bush and Nazis and communists, they're going to say, George Soros, you've gone over the top.
You actually picked up the most incendiary part of the book, and I am very careful to draw a clear distinction between the Nazi regime and our open society, because we are a democracy. But there are some similarities in the propaganda methods which I pointed out.
But George Soros, you lived through the Holocaust.
Yes.
You know firsthand what the Nazis were doing. You lived through the Cold War, the worst of the Stalinist era. To make comparisons between the President of the United States and these regimes, a lot of people are going to say, what are you thinking?
Well, that is unfortunate because I think there are some serious arguments about our open society being endangered by the policies followed by the Bush administration. The war on terror, which does not have an end, changes. It leads to an undue extension of executive powers. It has stifled debate, criticizing the president. This is considered unpatriotic. And as a result, we've been following policies which endanger our position.
A lot of people will agree with you on that.
Yes.
But where they will starkly disagree is to then bring in the whole Nazi and communist comparison.
You are actually, it's a valid point. And maybe I did go over the line, but I think that on the whole, my assessment is a balanced one. And the fact, frankly, when President Bush said, you are either with us or you are with the terrorists, that's when I was reminded. But I should have probably kept it to myself.
Decency and civility, anyone, Mr. Daniels? What about Ted Kennedy's attack on then Supreme Court nominee Robert Bork?
In Robert Bork's America, there is no room at the inn for blacks and no place in the Constitution for women. And in our America, there should be no seat on the Supreme Court for Robert Bork. Mr. Bork has been equally extreme in his opposition to the right to privacy. In an article in 1971, he said, in effect, that a husband and wife have no greater right to privacy under the Constitution than a smokestack has to pollute the air. What I hear you're saying here now is that the test that was used about 90 years ago, and which was the basis for discrimination against women, is the standard that you would use. You may be able to elaborate on it, but that's at least what I'm hearing.
Well, I don't know that it was the basis for discrimination against women. I think that society saw all kinds of distinctions, legal distinctions between men and women as entirely reasonable and rational. This society no longer sees them that way, and that is fine.
Well, I just take 30 more seconds, Mr. Chairman. On numerous occasions over the last 16 years, Mr. Bork, you've suggested the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution does not ban discrimination against women. Now you're suggesting the Supreme Court should apply the same lax standard to sex discrimination cases that applies in challenges to air pollution ordinances or economic regulations. You've also disapproved the Equal Rights Amendment. And finally, you also suggested in a 1985 opinion that the Civil Rights Act offers little, if any, protection against any one of the ugliest forms of gender discrimination, individual sexual harassment on the job. We've made great progress in the country in the last 20 years in giving women equal status under law, and I think the controversy has largely been settled. But you would have the Supreme Court evidently roll back the clock and reopen old wounds.
Senator, I think I must reply to that.
Even Bill Clinton's then Labor Secretary, Robert Reich, who used to work for Robert Bork, said he's never seen a public figure treated so shabbily, Mr. Daniels. This brings us to Keith Ellison, former Democratic congressman, former vice chair of the DNC, and now AG of Minnesota, and what he said about George W. Bush. Quote, 9/11 is the juggernaut in American history, and it's almost like, the Reichstag fire. After the Reichstag was burned, they blamed the communists for it and put the leader of that country, Hitler, in a position where he could basically have the authority to do whatever he wanted, end of quote. Now, remember when Ellison said Donald Trump was the worst Republican candidate since George Wallace? George Wallace was a Republican? Who knew?
Keith Ellison, you're a supporter of Bernie Sanders. What should happen?
Well, I'm with Bernie on this. I mean, we're focused on getting rid of Donald Trump, making sure he is not the president of the United States. I agree with Bernie. I'm disappointed to read about it, but at the same time, you know, we do have the worst Republican nominee since George Wallace. We have somebody who is so dangerous in a number of ways, not the least of which is his attacks on the press and his pulling press credentials. The First Amendment says freedom of the press. He attacks the press regularly. So I'm really kind of focused on the job at hand, but I am disappointed, but I'm not surprised. But at the same time, you know, I just have to keep trudging on, organizing people to turn out the maximum number of votes to defeat
Just
Donald
the
Trump.
beginning here in Philadelphia, Congressman Cole. You just came from Cleveland Republican convention. Was it a success?
Well, first I want to correct my friend. George Wallace was a proud Democrat and ran for the Democratic nomination. Was on that stage down there.
Thank God he got rejected and lost.
Well, that's fine, but let's be clear on the record as to whose party he belonged to.
Hey, but Trump has normalized anger and racism and bigotry and hatred. Right, Mr. Daniels? 1964, Goldwater-Johnson presidential race. Republican presidential candidate Barry Goldwater accepts an invitation to visit an American military installation located in Bavaria, Germany. On the CBS Evening News, hosted by Walter Cronkite, known as the most trusted man in America, correspondent Daniel Shore said, and I'm quoting, "It is now clear that Senator Goldwater's interview with Der Spiegel, the German newspaper, with its hard line appealing to right-wing elements in Germany, was only the start of a move to link up with its opposite numbers in Germany," end of quote. The reaction shot when the cameras returned to Cronkite in the studio showed the most trusted man in America gravely shaking his head.
Democracy stunk.
But hey, Mr. Daniels, Trump normalized bullying, hatred, anger, and bigotry, right? About Ronald Reagan, Stephen Hayward, author of the book called The Age of Reagan, wrote, and I'm quoting, "Liberals hated Reagan in the 1980s, pure and simple. They used language that would make the most fervid anti-Obama rhetoric of the Tea Party seem, well, like a Tea Party." Democratic Representative William Clay of Missouri charged that Reagan was, quote, "trying to replace the Bill of Rights with fascist precepts lifted verbatim from Mein Kampf," end of quote.
Du meine Arbeit für richtig hältst, ob du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin, dass ich gearbeitet habe, dass ich mich in diesen Jahren für dich eingesetzt habe, dass ich anständig meine Zeit verwendet habe im Dienste meines Volkes. Gib du jetzt deine Stimme ab. Wenn ja, dann tritt für mich ein, so wie ich für dich eingetreten bin.
After Republicans took control of the House and Newt Gingrich became the Speaker in the mid-1990s, Representative John Dingell of Michigan, whose wife is still in his seat, compared the newly conservative-controlled House to the Duma and the Reichstag, referring to the legislature set up by Tsar Nicholas II of Russia and the parliament of the German Weimar Republic that brought Hitler to power.
The Freikorps, Weimar Republic. As the First World War ended and Germany had been defeated, paramilitary groups emerged. The Freikorps formed from German soldiers returning home from the war. Their beliefs were nationalist, anti-Treaty of Versailles, and anti-communist. With the threat of invasion by the Red Army and communist uprisings in Germany during the German Revolution, the Freikorps provided a militaristic means of putting down revolution. The Weimar government itself also used the Freikorps for this purpose. In 1919, Friedrich Ebert and the Social Democratic Party called in the Freikorps to put down the Spartacist uprising. Spartacists were communists who wanted to overthrow the existing government. Two of the Communist Party of Germany leaders, Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht, were murdered while under arrest after the uprising. The criticism of these executions by presumed Freikorps members brought criticisms on Ebert. Two Freikorps members were eventually tried but given light sentences. The Freikorps were also used to defeat the Bavarian Soviet Republic, which established in April 1919. 9,000 Reichswehr soldiers and 30,000 members of the Freikorps were used to defeat the communist fighters. When the Treaty of Versailles came into effect on January 10, 1920, Germany's land forces were to be reduced to just 100,000 men. The Freikorps were therefore expected to be disbanded, leading some Freikorps commanders to consider a government coup. A Freikorps unit called the Erhard Brigade attempted to overthrow Ebert's Weimar government in Berlin. Wolfgang Kapp was put in charge of the brief government after Ebert fled. However, the coup was quickly ended when the workers loyal to the Weimar government went on strike, cutting off water, gas, electricity, and transportation, and therefore paralyzing Berlin. After the Freikorps disbanded, many joined the Nazi Party and became members of the SA, pledging their loyalty to Hitler.
Decency and civility, anyone, Mr. Daniels? Former VP Al Gore said, quote, George W. Bush's executive branch has made it a practice to try and control and intimidate news organizations from PBS to CBS to Newsweek, and every day they unleash squadrons of digital brown shirts to harass and hector any journalist who is critical of the president, end of quote. Digital brown shirts, Mr. Daniels?
The brown shirts were a paramilitary militia that supported the rise of Nazism in Germany. One of their main functions was to act as agitators and rioters, interfering in the political actions of communist and social democratic opponents, usually resorting to intimidation and violence. Under Rome's leadership, the brown shirts were responsible for much of the persecution of Jews and Gypsies during the rise of Nazism. Fearing its growing power, Hitler ordered the purging of this group's leadership when he came to power. They were either arrested or murdered in the infamous Night of the Long Knives. Rome was then executed and the brown shirts were weakened. They gradually lost space and power to the SS units.
Mr. Daniels, this brings us to actor, singer, and activist Harry Belafonte, who marched with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He called Bush a racist. When asked about whether the number and prominence of blacks in the Bush administration, like Colin Powell and Condi Rice, maybe suggested a lack of racism, Belafonte said, quote, Hitler had a lot of Jews high up in the hierarchy of the Third Reich, end of quote.
My comments about General Colin Powell is really not a personal confrontation. Black Americans and many peoples of color have always taken great pride in what those of us who have come from a history of oppression have achieved. And when an individual breaks through and comes into the place where decisions are made that can make a difference, we then have high expectations. Once that is rejected by those who have acquired this position, we may sit in quiet disappointment. But when the person who achieves that distinction then puts him or herself in the service of our oppression and those who create new ways in which to oppress us, that is morally unacceptable. And that is my argument with General Colin Powell and Condoleezza Rice.
No hatred or incivility there, Mr. Daniels. NAACP Chairman Julian Bond, after the election of George W. Bush, said that Bush got his cabinet appointees from the Taliban wing of the Republican Party. After 9/11 and the exposure of exactly who the Taliban are, Bond said it again. He also played the Nazi card several times, speaking at a historically black college in North Carolina called Fayetteville. In 2006, Bond said, quote, the Republican Party would have the American flag and the swastika flying side by side, end of quote. Again, Mr. Daniels, all of this is well before Trump ever descended the escalator at Trump Tower. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, who dared rein in excessive public employee compensation packages, received the full Nazi treatment. There's a hard left blog called libcom.org, and they posted this in 2011, quote, Scott Walker is a fascist, perhaps not in the classical sense since he doesn't operate in the streets, but a fascist nonetheless. He is a fascist, for his program takes immediate and direct aim at a sector of the working class, end of quote.
We've lost decency, we've lost civility, we've lost respect for the rule of law, lost it. We have normalized verbal abuse on the internet. We've normalized bullying.
After the 2012 Republican National Convention, California Democratic Party Chairman John Burton said, and I quote, Republicans lie, and they don't care if people think they lie. As long as you lie, Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels says the big lie. You just keep repeating it, end of quote.
Ideally, we're supposed to elect the best of us, not the worst of us. He's everything that's wrong with not just America, but with being a human being.
Still at 2012, Mr. Daniels. The chairman of the South Carolina Democratic Party, Dick Harpootlian, compared the state Republican governor to Hitler's mistress. When told that the Republicans were holding a competing press conference at a NASCAR Hall of Fame basement studio, Harpootlian told the South Carolina delegation, quote, Governor Nikki Haley was down in a bunker, a la Eva Braun, end of quote. Mr. Daniels, you're 70 years old, so most of this happened while you were still alive. Did you lecture your side on its lack of decency and lack of civility, on its bigotry, and on its racism?
Oh, I see nothing. I was not here. I did not even get up this morning.
Finally, what? You have got to be kidding. Well, that worked out.
Can I make a little talk? Can we get a little close? Can I get an amen? Can I get a hell yeah? Can I get a Holy Ghost? Somebody give me a beat. Let me see you on your feet. Somebody say you're mad. I don't give a goddamn. I wanna be a freak. Oh, catch me if you can. I don't think you understand where we're going.
Hope you enjoyed We've Got a Country to Say, brought to you by our friends at Immun'Âge. Immun'Âge is the ultimate anti-aging supplement. Since I've been taking it, I feel energized, at the top of my game, and people keep saying I look younger. Go to Immun'Âge.com and use promo code Larry for 10% off. And by Relief Factor. Relief Factor is 100% drug-free, and it targets the inflammation that causes pain, so you can move better, feel better, and actually enjoy life again. And by Patriot Mobile and AmFed Coin and Bullion. Even if you've bought from somebody else, AmFed will give you a free performance review. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Just go to AmericanFederal.com. Now, please be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast. Make sure to follow or subscribe to my channel on whatever platform you are using, whether X, YouTube, Facebook, or Rumble. Please patronize our sponsors so we can keep bringing you these awesome videos. And remember, we've got a country to save.
Fight for what's right. Fight for your life.
Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.